Islanders, welcome back to another episode of Islander Robotics, where today I'm going to be showing all of you how to install and properly use the Python Kaggle API. So for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm William, and I have a huge passion for artificial intelligence robotics. Not only that, but I also enjoy showing all of you Islanders my experiences with Python. So with no further ado, let's get into today's video. So sit back, relax with your favorite snack, and let's get started. All right, Islanders, so here's the plan. Really what we've been doing over the past few months is we've been focusing in on the basics of Python. Really, the whole purpose of the YouTube Keyword Planner and the stock analysis tool was coming up with projects to have a firm grasp of the Python basics. The reason being is because Python is a huge language that's used really all throughout various different industries, and in order to actually master Python, you actually have to just kind of like focus in on one specific area. And that's really what I want us to start doing now, is because we have more, this community really does have more than enough knowledge to actually start focusing in on one specific area. And that specific area I want to start focusing in on is machine learning and artificial intelligence. I'm honestly really excited to start showing all of you the various different applications you can use machine learning or artificial intelligence, because I have such a huge passion for those two areas. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I decided to actually start this YouTube channel, was to start showing all of you my experiences, not only with Python, but also with machine learning and artificial intelligence. Really what I want us to start doing more of is using Python to learn machine learning and artificial intelligence through demonstration. All right, so that's really what we're going to start doing. But before we can actually start doing that, we actually have to have some sort of data set to actually build our models from. Luckily, what we're going to be doing today is actually installing. I'm going to be showing all of you how to install as well as use the Python Kaggle API. All right, I do realize a lot of you probably have no clue what an API is, so let's just go over what an API is. And that is an acronym for an application programming interface. And really what it really does is, I guess you could consider it a middle person between your software and whatever web development or whatever application you're trying to access information from. So say you're trying to send a message from Facebook to another Facebook user. You're actually using a Facebook API to do that, as well as when you're just sending a DM on your Instagram or whatever, or Twitter, that is another form of using an API. So we're using APIs really in all everyday life, but we don't really realize that we're using it, right? So APIs is a huge thing to actually learn and understand, because we'll be able to really apply this to all sorts of different applications, not just getting our data set from the Kaggle website. All right, so when dealing with an API, a lot of times you have to have some sort of API key for the API. And when I say API key, what it really is a set of credentials on your system that allows you to access the information that your API provides. All right, so there are some APIs that do not require you to have an API key. However, Kaggle is one of those APIs that requires you to have this API key in order to actually interact with its API. So since since we can't use the API unless we have this key on our system, I'm going to show all of you how to actually get that API key. Very first thing we're going to do is actually go to the Kaggle homepage. All the websites as well as the steps taken in today's video will be down in the description bar down below, so go ahead and check that out if you would like. I'm gonna get the Google Chrome web browser all up on the screen, and I'll see you all in a couple of seconds. So I have Kaggle's homepage up on the screen right now, as you all can see right behind me. Very first thing we're going to do is actually go over to the profile page. Kaggle's a really cool website, and I highly suggest all of you going to check it out if you have not yet done so. But I'm going to click on my profile name, and then in order to actually get this API key, we also have to click on the Count tab and scroll all the way down to this API section. An API key is also known as a API token. So what we're going to do is create new API token. Now, if we were to leave this Kaggle.json inside of our downloads folder, our API would not be able to successfully work correctly. And the reason being is because, like you can see up here, ensure Kaggle.json is in the location of this file directory right here, .kaggle. That is where the API is going to look inside your system in order to find this API key. Also, it's going to be a .json file. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comment section down below, but I believe a API key doesn't have to be a JSON file. It can be all sorts of different files. But anyways, what we're going to do actually is we're going to go over to the terminal, and we're going to actually not only create this .kaggle directory, but we're also going to move this Kaggle .json file from our downloads folder or directory into our .kaggle directory. Now, I don't know if I said this earlier, but what a directory is actually just a folder within your system. All right, so when I say file directory, root directory, that I'm talking about the root folder or the root directory or that file folder or file directory. All right, so that being said, we're going to switch over to the terminal, and inside the terminal, what we want to make sure of is that we're actually in the root directory. And the best way really to do that is we're just going to say cd and not put anything after it. This is going to tell our system to go to the root directory. Now, all the commands I'm about to tell all of you only apply for Linux as well as Mac OS systems. If you're running a Windows system, the commands will be completely different, but the idea on what to do is going to be exactly the same. So we're going to hit enter right now. And if we go right now, we're going to see that we're actually inside of the root directory. All right. To actually create this .kaggle directory, what we're going to do is mkdir. This is telling our system to create a directory called .kaggle. All right. And we're going to hit enter, and that directory is now created within our system. To actually move our kaggle.json file from our downloads folder to our .kaggle directory is actually what we're going to do is just say mv, now swirly little thing, I don't even know what the heck that's called. If you know what it's called, leave it down in the comment section down below. I just know you need that little swirly thing in order for this command to actually work. But we're going to say downloads, and we're going to say kaggle.json. Now this little swirly thing again, what this swirly thing is saying is just telling your system to first look at your root directory. That's what that little swiggly thing is standing for. And then we're going to say within the root directory, look for the .kaggle. All right. Oh, actually, no. .kaggle. All right. Now, when I was testing out today's code, there was one issue I fell into. Well, I encountered, and that was I did another slash, and I did Kaggle again. Now, what I was supposed to do was the .json, and if I did that, it would have been fine. But because I didn't include the .json, the file when it was moved was also its file extension was changed to no file extension. So really, the best thing to do when you're moving around files is the first section. You do have to name what file you're moving. You have to name the directory as well as the name of the file, which is why we have the kaggle.json included at the first part. And then the second part, all you really need is where this file is being moved to. In our circumstance, we're moving it to a file location within our root directory called .kaggle. Now, once we hit enter, this file should be moved into the .kaggle. The way to actually see if it actually did, we're going to say cd, and we're going to say .kaggle, and we're going to say ls to actually show us all the files in this file directory. We're going to hit enter, and we see kaggle.json. Now, our API key, our API token is all ready and set for us to actually install our API. So what we're going to do to actually install our API is really one of three different options you islanders have to actually install this API onto your system. The first way is to install it locally onto your system, and the way that you're going to actually just do that is by opening up a terminal just like this right here we have up behind me. Now, in order to actually install the module onto your system locally, you just have to do pip install Kaggle, and then you're just going to hit enter. However, I do not really recommend installing the Kaggle API module onto your local system, really, because once you're doing that, it really has the chance of interfering with your local system's hardware and software. So what I highly suggest to do is actually run a virtual environment like I do. That's what database right here is actually doing, is it's actually a virtual machine that I have running on my system for this specific project. And for those of you that are wondering, I'm actually running the pipenv virtual environment. There's actually two, pipenv and virtual env. And really, you can use any one of those, but I found that the pipenv actually works the best with the MacBook M1s. And I do suggest, if you're running a MacBook M1 or any of the M1 software, well, any of the M1 computers, I highly suggest using a virtual environment. The reason being is because you're going to have a heck of a lot easier time actually installing and running Python modules. Just for instance, because I have that virtual environment, I can hit enter, and I already have this already up to date. It's already all set. The second way to actually install, well, the third way, because I just went over the second way. The third way to actually install this module onto your system is some IDEs like my IDE right here. PyCharm, I'm actually able to use the IDEL to actually install the module onto my system just by coming over to Python packages, and I already have it right here. I'm just gonna click this and I'm gonna hit install, and once that's all set and ready to go, it's already installed just like that. So really you have any one of those three options to just pick and find out how it's going to work for you. Hey Islanders, so this is actually editing Will right now. I noticed while I was editing that last section of the video that my beautiful mug was covering the install button that I was talking about. So when I was saying just click this button, I'm actually talking about this button right here that says install, and I just hit it and it's gonna run. It's gonna install the latest version. If your IDEL actually does allow you to do this like PyCharm does, I highly do suggest. I know a lot of you are probably going to try and do it through the terminal way anyways, but in a lot of the circumstances, this way can actually help you not have a programmer headache. So that's my tip for the day. If your IDE allows you to install Python modules, go ahead and use it. All right, so now back to current me. So now we actually have the API on our system. The next thing we actually have to do is, yes, I do know it says successfully installed. However, you still want to test that whatever you just installed actually is currently working. And since, well, there's really two things that's going to happen. One, we actually need an API key that's going to actually tell the API, hey, we're looking for this specific data set or whatever it is that you're actually calling for the API to do, as well as this is a command line tool, so everything that we're going to be doing is through the command line. All right, so the very first thing we're going to actually do is actually head over to Google Chrome, get back onto the Kaggle homepage. I just want to correct myself. A couple of seconds ago, I said API key. What we actually want is the API command. So in order to actually get this from Kaggle, what you want to do is actually go to datasets and click it. It's going to load, and you can pick any one of these data sets, and it's going to give you a command, an API command. In our circumstance, really what we're going to be doing is I'm actually going to go over to the California housing price data set, really because this is the data set we're going to be working with in the next video. And the API command that we need is actually, see these three dots right here? You're going to click on this, you're going to say copy API command. This is honestly the easiest way to actually be able to get the API, well, the command for the API. There is another way to actually do it, but it's going to be a little bit confusing to actually do it that way, so that's why we're using this method. Now what we're going to do with this command is actually head back over to a terminal where that API command that we copied from the other page, we're just going to come over to the terminal and we're just going to do Control V, Command V, and then hit enter. Now what it's going to do is send this command out to the API, the server, request this information, and now it's going to be downloaded as a zip file. So if we actually go ls, what we're going to see is pip file, pip block, and see California housing prices.zip. That's the file we were actually able to download using that API command. When using the Kaggle API as the terminal command, well, the command line tool, you really want to make sure that you're actually in the file directory that you want that file's home to be. So right now I'm actually in the main directory of where I want this file to be. But let's just say I did CD and I'm back in my root directory. If I were to do that command right now, that file will actually be downloaded to my root directory. Just for instance, I'm just going to do right there and then, and it's going to actually install it. And the proof is going to be, where are you? Right here. It actually downloaded it into my main file directory. So really just keep that in mind. Wherever you want this file to be, that's where you should use this command line tool in your directory. Now, what fun would it be if we didn't take this project up a notch? I'm talking about creating our very own automated Kaggle dataset installer. If that doesn't sound amazing to you, that's totally fine. As long as that zip file was able to successfully get downloaded onto your system, the API is working perfectly fine on your system. For those of you that want to actually create your very own automated Kaggle installer, let's get started on this journey, shall we? Everyone, so what I'm going to be trying today is actually a different way of actually showing all of you and explaining the script that I was able to create for today's video. So let me know down in the comment section down below on what you all think about this version of me explaining. If you like the way that I've always explained the scripts, or if you like the current version. So let me know down in the comment section down below. I'm going to check this out and see how I feel about using this way of explaining the script to you guys as well. So on line 1 through 3, we're going to be importing modules. These modules are going to be used in various different ways throughout this class, but the very first thing on line 1 is going to be the OS module. Then we're going to do the zip file module. This is going to allow us to essentially do a whole boatload of different stuff with the zip file that the API sends us, and then we download that zip file. The next thing is actually going to be the pandas module, and this pandas module is because when I want this file to, well, this class to return, I want the ability to actually be able to access the panda, well, I want to be able to access the data within those CSV files as a pandas data frame. All right. Once we have defined all the modules that we're going to be using in today's video, next thing we actually have to do is actually create the class that we're going to be operating with. And the class that we're going to be creating today is going to be called databases. I know, not really that original, but it makes sense for me. And then we're going to actually, inside of the init method, we're going to have one input argument. That input argument is going to be the API command that Kaggle gives us. I just showed all of you how to get the API, well, the API command. That API command is actually going to be imported into os.system. What os.system allows us to do is actually input stuff into our command line or terminal. In our circumstance, what we're going to be importing into our terminal is the Kaggle API command. Once that's returned, what we're going to do actually is get the name of our zip file. The easiest way to actually find out what zip file the Kaggle API just downloaded on us is first by actually setting self.name equal to API command.split, because after the first / that is the name of the zip file. So essentially what we're going to be doing is disregarding the whole first half of the API command and only caring about everything after that first /. That .split allows us to split strings essentially wherever we want just by defining it within these parentheses. Now, what the next thing we're going to actually do is actually go to the next method of this class, which is going to be called the open method. The open method is where we're going to do all the fun stuff with this zip file, get all the CSV files, find out the names of those CSV files, turn those CSV files into pandas data frames, all that fun stuff. Then once we've actually returned from that open method, what we're going to do is actually remove the zip file that the Kaggle API downloaded for us. Really just for memory's sake, as well as just if you're going to do this all the time, it's going to get very cluttery in that folder. So just to get rid of something essentially we don't really need anymore, we're just going to delete it at the end of this class. All right. Now the open method. So the very first thing we're actually going to create within this open method over here on line 11 is actually going to be self.dataset, which is going to equal an empty list. Once we have that empty list verified and declared, what we're going to do is now actually open that zip file. The way we're going to actually open that zip file is we're going to use the with method. We're going to say with zip file, and that second zip file I'm talking about is actually capital Z and capital F. So zip file. I know, a little confusing, but within that zip file, the parentheses of the second one, we're going to verify the name that we're actually talking about. So in our circumstance, it's going to be self.name at index 1 plus .zip. All right. Then what we're going to do is also we're going to pass in this R right here, which means we're going to be reading that file, and we're going to set this as zip. All right. Once that's defined, I want to keep track of what file names is actually within this zip file, and in a lot of circumstances the zip file may have more than one file inside of it. So this file's name as well as the zip file.name list is actually going to be set as a list. All right, so just letting you all know, that's going to actually come in a lot handy. That's actually going to come in really handy in a couple of seconds. But once we've defined that, we're going to actually extract all the files from that zip file by just saying zip.extract all. Once that's done, since we're using the with method, we actually don't have to say close, because Python's going to automatically close that zip file as soon as we exit out of this with loop. Once we exit out of this with loop, we're actually going to go into a for loop that's going to say for I in range, well, for I in file names, we're going to say self.dataset.append pd.read CSV, and we're going to pass in the name of I. and that's just going to be the name of the files, and we're just going to convert all those CSV files into pandas data frames. Once those pandas data frames have been declared, we're going to then also say self.files names equals files names. And really, once that's done, we're going to be able to now go over to the main and say from database import database, and data equals database. We're going to pass in the API command that we got from right here. If you remember correctly, 3 dots, click, copy API command, and we just paste that right there. Once that's done, just so that all of you can see, as well as for my verification, that this this class is actually working successfully, we're going to actually for loop through that data set. So we're going to say for I in data.dataset print I. So therefore now we can actually hit run, and once we hit run, we are all set to go. Thank you all so much for watching. Islanders, you're all truly amazing. And for those of you that have any questions, please go right ahead and leave it down in the comment section down below. For those Islanders that are not yet part of the community, please do consider becoming part of the community, where we are using Python to learn applications of machine learning and artificial intelligence through demonstration. As always, happy coding, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.